this was my first experience with hospice. I knew that the hospice existed in Kelowna and had always heard wonderful things about it. And when I started to consider if this was what needed to happen next, I started to hear even more wonderful things about it. And so I think my only concern was it what Doug wanted? And because Doug wasn't able to communicate what he wanted, I had to make that decision on my own. But once I got here, and having experienced some of the people on the palliative response team who came to home to talk to me about the options and all that kind of thing, just wonderful people, tremendously enthusiastic about the hospice and what can happen here. And I think one thing I heard again and again from lots of different people was, if you go to the hospice, you can be his wife again. And that was huge. Yeah. I think there are two main things that kind of stand out about the experience here. One is the amazing level of care, both taking care of the physical needs and also the love and respect that was given emotionally. And that's not just to Doug the patient, but also to me, the carer, and all the other friends and people that were in and out around Doug's stay here. He was here for 6 weeks. And so, you know, that level of just the physical care and the emotional care. And then the happy place. As soon as I walked through the door, because I had not been in this building before we actually arrived here for Doug to stay. As soon as I walked in the building, I could feel an energy that was uplifting and happy and, yes, dealing with difficult things, but doing it in a very positive, love-based way as opposed to a fear-based way. There was no fear in the energy when I walked through the doors, and that was very important to me because that's how Doug lived his life. So it was totally in alignment with how Doug lived his life, and I'm sure that's why he just settled in. He was peaceful, he was calm, he was right to the very end, accepting. There was one day when we were in the garden, and he hadn't spoken very much. He hadn't spoken very much for about a month. And all of a sudden we were sitting out in the garden and he said, and at this point I didn't even know whether he comprehended that he was dying. He said, "It's the end of the world. Good place to spend the last days." So I knew I'd made the right decision. Yeah. Because of who Doug was, there were a lot of people who wanted to be part of this experience, and so there were all kinds of people that were visiting with him for short periods. There were three of us who were kind of the three musketeers, we called ourselves, the three key people around Doug: myself, Peter, our business partner, and Kelsang Sandon, who is a very dear friend, and also our spiritual guide, and he's a Buddhist monk. And so Sandon was very openly welcomed here. Sandon, being Sandon, such a great guy, fits in wherever he goes. was very much welcomed here, and it was very important to both Doug and I that he was here and able to provide us both with support, and also for him to be here to be with his friend. And it was marvellous. And we also had another nun friend who came in and out for several days when Sandon was not able to be here, and it was very, very important. And they just fitted in, and everybody here, the staff, the volunteers, the other carers around, were all some a little curious. Big man in a long dress. But it was great. It was really great. And the other the other being that was so welcomed here was the dog. And when I have to admit that when the nurse from the palliative response team said, "And you can bring the dog to visit," I was like, maybe this can work. Because the dog was a part of our family, and she was welcome here too. So it was very special. Every aspect of being here is remarkable. The physical environment is outstanding. The facilities for the patients and for the nurses working with the patients is outstanding. The facilities for carers and guests and friends to be here in the common areas and the beautiful gardens, the standard of care, the professionalism, the absolute kindness and compassion of everybody, the nurses and staff, the administrative staff, the volunteers, all just absolutely amazing. And I like to come back, and I pop in and say hello and have a cup of tea, and it uplifts me to come back in here. And so it's a marvellous place.